Shavua Tov, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Just a quick public service announcement before we begin. We didn't have the manpower to have anybody sit at the door tonight, so if anybody forgot to pay, you can see afterwards loan Hakimian or Venmo SBM donations if anybody forgot to pay. We'd like to start by thanking, of course, our power couple, Leon and Elisheva Hakimian. Every successful event that happens in our community, you hear this, President? Every successful event that happens in our community is run by Leon and Elisheva Tiskulim Mitzvot. Thank you very much, Leon and Eli. We'd also like to thank the Sharei Rachamim board for being so helpful, accommodation, particularly President Ryan Lydiam, Tiskulim Mitzvot. And of course, SBM, Josh Levian, and everyone who helps at SBM, thank you very much for everything that you did for us as well. We'd like to introduce Rabbi Yoel Gold. We're excited to have him here tonight. Just a little bit about him. He's a rabbi from Los Angeles. He represents congregations based Naphtali. He's a master storyteller, as all of you know. You might have recognized him from his Meaningful Minute podcast, Meaningful Minute videos, or from his famous Tisha B'Av videos that we all enjoy so much. He's also one of the legendary speakers in the Jewish world today. We're very honored to have him, Rabbi Yoel Gold.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Shavua Tov. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really feel incredible warmth and love coming through these doors at Sharei Rachamim. How's my ham? It's good? I'm married to an SY, by the way. I'm married to a Sfari. You approve? Okay. So a couple of years ago, I'm shopping at La Brea Kosher, a local supermarket in LA, and a woman stops me and she said, I write a column for the Ami magazine for the past 10 years, and she says, Rabbi Gold, I cannot read your column anymore. I can't read your stories. I'm like, why not? She said, when I open the magazine, there are cockroaches on your page. So I said, what? Now, people say all kinds of stuff. So, okay. I wished her well and I moved on. I turned the aisle and I write in the Ami Living, which is the women's section. Another woman approaches me, she says, Rabbi Gold, I'm expecting, it's nauseating. There are cockroaches on your page. I cannot read your column anymore. And this time, bells in my head goes off, and oh my gosh, what's going on? Cockroaches on my page. I don't read my own column, by the way. I just submit it. I run home, I open the Ami, and I see there are actually life-size cockroaches on the page. It's an exterminating company advertising on the bottom of my column. So I said, all kinds of companies advertise, no problem. It's printed, it's too late. So the next week, I figured, they'll probably find a different page. Next week, I open the Ami this time myself, and I see the cockroaches are right there. And this time, I'm really upset, because I've heard from readers they can't read it, and it's too, So I call up quickly the editor, Rechi. I said, Rechi, what's with the cockroaches? He says, Rabbi Gold, you should feel honored. I said, why? She said, you have to understand, this exterminating company refuses to advertise on any other page except yours. They say they'll only advertise with us if they get Yoel Gold's page. I said, please tell the company I love covet, but no thank you. We're not going to do this. So I tell that story anytime I really, truly do feel honored. And it really is a kavod, really, to be here with you. And I want to thank Leon and Elisheva Hakimian. I can't imagine how many times we went back and forth to try to make this happen. And I think the date was even switched at some point, but you were persistent, and I'm so happy that it's finally happening right now. Also, Ryan Levine, the president. Thank you so much. And Doron Akimian, no relation, but thank you. The Amanovs, my good friends, I mean, amazing to be here. You know, you remind me also, like, anybody basketball fans from back in the day? 90s, Bulls, yeah? Some of you were too young? You're good? Okay. So remember when Jordan scored his career high 69 points? Do you remember that against the Cleveland Cavaliers? March 28th. And he got off the court. This is a great story. He gets off the court into the locker room and he's surrounded by 1 million reporters. There's one reporter trying to make his way to Jordan to ask him a question, and there's no way he can do it. So he figures, you know what? I'll go to somebody else. And in the locker room, there was a rookie. His name was Stacey King. And Stacey King had scored 1 point. He was fouled. He went to the foul line, and he missed one, he hit one, and that was his contribution. So the reporter goes over to Stacey, gives the mic. Stacey, so what do you say? Isn't that incredible? Jordan, 69, a career high. Without batting an eyelash, Stacey King says, yeah, any night that Jordan and I combine for a 70-point game, it's a good night for the Bulls. So I say, Leon and Lesheva, any night that you and I combine for a 70-point game, Lava Malka, it's a good night for Shared Hamim. I got 1 point, that's it. Okay, I just came from an MDY Shabbaton. MDY is Merkaz Daf Hayomi. They learn the Daf every day, or Eli Stefanski. There were almost 1,000 people there. It was such an uplifting Shabbat. And I told over one story, the first story that I told over, that I really feel applies right here. Several years ago, I was invited to spend Shabbos in Lakewood at a family known as the Schroen family, Morty Schroen. His father is Ruby Schroen, one of the biggest philanthropists in Am Yisrael. Nodding your head. Many of you know him. Okay. So Morty has like 100 orphans for Shabbos. Literally 100 orphans. And he's very involved with Yotomim and, Almanot, and he invites them over, and they ask me to come. So it was one of the most memorable Shabbosim, spending time with teenage Yisomim, just heart to heart, connecting, speaking. Shabbat lunch, Ruby Schroen gets up, and he says, any of these boys who has a question for me, you can ask. Stand up and ask a question, whatever you got. And this one boy gets up, and he says, Mr. Schroen, I gotta ask you, you've been living in the same house for 40 years. You drive the same Toyota Camry for like 12 years. I don't understand. You can afford to buy the Empire State Building. Why are you living such a simple life when you have so much money? So the room was quiet. And literally you can hear a pin drop because everybody got uncomfortable. And Ruby says, I've never shared this in public. His son, who was sitting next to me, one of his sons, Avi, when his father shared what he shared then and there, he told me quietly, he said, I never heard my father say this in my entire life, but this is what he said, very powerful. He said, when I was a bacher, I was just about to get married, I could not afford to buy a hat for my wedding. I couldn't afford it. And I went to the hat store, borrowed a hat for the night of the wedding, danced, returned the hat, started dabbling in business, and before I knew it, I was making a lot of money. I saw tremendous success. I felt like the gates of Shemayim opened up for me. Whatever I touched turned to gold. I was learning Second Seder in the Mir Yeshiva in Flatbush, and I was able to afford a car. And I started driving my Rebbe, Rav Shmuel Brudny, after Second Seder home, because I was the one who had a car. So I'm driving him home one day, he says, and I share with my Rebbe, I say, Rebbe, I gotta tell you, I'm making a lot of money. I feel like the Tzinorot Shel Shefa have opened up. I don't know what's happening, but it's all coming in. So his Rebbe said, Reuven, I want you to pull over. So he pulls over, and his Rebbe had blue eyes, very penetrating, deep. His name was Shmuel Brudny, Elliot Brudny's father. Take a look, picture of him. He had mamish blue eyes. And Ruby said that his Rebbe never stared at anybody. He was always looking down, just quickly, but so for the first time, his Rebbe picks up his eyes and looks deep into Ruby's eyes, and he says, Reuven, there's a Gemara in Meseches Erechen. The Gemara says that there was a flute in the Bet HaMikdash that was made from Pshutei Kli Eitz. It was made of wood, and it was passed down from generation to generation from the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Gemara describes that it played the most beautiful music. And the Levian were so taken by this flute, the importance, the beauty, they said, we're going to cover it with gold. And that's what they did. They covered the flute with gold. Says the Gemara, the flute never played the same beautiful music again. That was it. So Rav Shmuel Brudny turns to Ruby Shron in the car and says, Reuven, promise me that you will never cover yourself with that gold, because if you do, you're never going to play the same beautiful music again. The sound of Torah, it'll ruin it. And Ruby was almost in tears. It was a very emotional moment, and he turned to the Yatom, to the boy, and he said, it's been over 60 years, and I never broke my promise to my Rebbe. I live in the same house. I drive the Toyota Camry. It was such a powerful moment for me, because I realized that V'ata kitvu lechem et hashira hazot, shira is Torah, the music, it has to stay a certain type of song to be v'lamdat b'nei Israel, to pass it over to the next generation. It has to remain pure. It can't become diluted and covered over with gold. And I have to say, I walk in here tonight, there is such a thirst for Torah. Everybody, almost everybody, I can't wait to hear you speak. You thirst to be inspired. And it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I honor all of you for that. I noticed on the Aron Kodesh, I always look at the pasuk when I come to a shul. Now, it's very interesting to me, because I believe, I have a theory, that every Bet HaKnesset, every shul, has their own pasuk. There's the general, Shaviti Hashem L'negdi Tamid, there is Kimitzian Tetzia Torah, yeah. But I looked up over here, V'ani Baruch Hazdecha Avo V'techa, and I took note, because I believe the pasuk a community in a shul choose captures the mission statement of that community. I'll give you an example. Like my son's school, I daven my son's school every morning. I drop him off. I stay for shaharit. On the Aron Kodesh on my son's school is Chanoch Lena'ar Al Pi Darko. Beautiful. It's a school. If you go to Chabad Alei, you know what it says on the Aron Kodesh? Ufaratzta Yama Vekedma Tzafona V'Negba. Amazing, right? If you go to Lakewood, BMG, Bet Medrash Gavah, and you go into the old building with the Aron Kodesh, it says, Ma ahavti toratecha kol hayom isichati. That's the mission statement. That's why they chose that pasuk. By the way, if you're ever at the Kotel and you go into the room where they have all the Aron Kodeshes, you will see huge words, letters. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah udavar Adonai Yerushalayim. So appropriate. I don't know if you know Yiddish, but I grew up in Williamsburg Hasidish. We used to daven in Satmar. And in Satmar, every Satmar shul has this, because in Yiddish, Tamar is a title bound. So all this, the title bound was the Satmar Rebbe's last name. So all the Aron Kodeshes have Tzadik Katamar Yifrach Ke'erez Ba'avanon Yizgeh. Anyway, everybody finds their connection that resonates with them and their community. So I have over here my dear friend Judy Charnowitz, who we'll talk about more in just a moment, but she sent me a photo the other week. She was in Mexico City, and she sent me a photo of a community of Gerim. Listen to this. And she said, you'll never believe what's on the Aron Kodesh. Here's the backstory. The rabbi of that community of Gerim, he was the son, he grew up Catholic, Christian, he was the son of a missionary, of an evangelical. And he discovered Torah and mitzvahs. He had gotten married before. He was still a Christian, and he loved music, and they had a music shop. They were selling instruments, making money. And when they discovered Torah and mitzvot, they decided that, they want to convert. They couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford the conversion. They couldn't afford hiring people to teach them about Torah. They couldn't afford moving to a different community. So they sold their music shop, their livelihood, their passion. They sold it to be able to come into Torah mitzvot. And now that fellow is the rabbi, and on the Aron Kodesh it says, the pasuk, Hallelu benevel vechinor. That's my song. I say this because we have the tremendous zechut to have a Yid with us, a Jew with us, who I just spent Shabbat with him, who is as close to me like a brother, who had walked out of being a leader of a church of 3,000 people. And I know all of you have watched this. 3,000 people, because he discovered Torah and mitzvot, and he said to them, I'm sorry for teaching you lies. If you want the truth, come explore it with me. And 600 people walked out with him. And today, he's the rabbi of a flourishing community in Colombia. Incredible, Rabbi Elad, please. That's Yitzchak, by the way.
My son.
Thank you for being here, Rabbi.
Rabbi, tell them where they can watch the video if they can.
Elisha, Ashkifa.com, Torah anytime. You can watch one part, but there are two parts. We just released another part this year. Incredible.
Never in your life you make two parts.
Yeah, Rabbi's saying, never in my life did I make a sequel to anything except his story. So, yeah. And really, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Mrs. Judy Charnowitz, who reached out to me at first. She's like a second mother to that community and has given her heart and soul to Rabbi Elad and his family and the entire community. God bless you, Judy. Thank you. So let me get to, so now we can start. So there's a pasuk. The pasuk says in Shir HaShirim, the pasuk says, Hishbati etchem benot Yerushalayim. I swear to you, benot Yerushalayim, the daughters of Yerushalayim. Rashi says it's referring to angels. We're talking to the malachim, and we're telling them, if you find my beloved, timtzu et dodi, ma tagidu lo, what should you tell God if you find him or when you find him? And they say, Shecholat ahava ani. Tell Hashem that we're sick with love over Him. So listen to a Midrash. Midrash tells us, Shecholat ahava ani. I'm sick with love over Hashem. I love you, God. Says the Midrash, Lo choli rosh. It's not a headache. That's not why I'm sick. Lo choli ma'ayin. It's not a stomach ache. That's not why I'm sick. Lo choli raglayim. It's not because my feet ache. Ela shecholat ahava ani. It's because I am sick with love over you, Hashem. The Holy Sfat Emet asks an obvious question. He asks, I don't understand. The Pasuk says, Shecholat ahavani. I'm sick with love over you. So why does the Midrash have to emphasize, highlight, it's not a headache, it's not a stomach ache, it's not that my feet ache, it's Shecholat ahavani. What is the Midrash trying to teach us? It's explicit in the Pasuk. Listen to Sfat Emet. Wow. If you take away anything tonight, this should be it. The Sfat Emet says that sometimes you go to a doctor and you have a rash. And the doctor misdiagnoses you. He doesn't understand that the rash is just a symptom. He treats the symptom but not the cause. It happens. Midrash says, we tell the Ribono Shel Olam, we say, God, I know sometimes we have a choli rosh. We fill our heads with all kinds of stuff. It's a headache. We consume all kinds of material that may be detrimental to our neshama. But when you diagnose us, when you look at us, just remember, it's not a choli rosh. It's not a headache that we have. You know what it is? We have this deep void inside of us. It's really, the cause is the void because I don't feel you in my life. I love you and I want to feel you. I want to fill myself up with your presence and your love, and somehow I can't. And this is a poor substitute. And the same is true for choli raglayim. Sometimes our feet take us to places we shouldn't be going. But you know why? It's not that it's a choli raglayim. That's not what it is. That's the symptom. But underneath is the cholat ahava ani. I feel empty. I feel a void. I'm trying to fill it. Poor substitute. And the same is with a choli ma'ayin. Some of us are so desperately in need to feel the love of Hashem in our lives, we have no choice, so to speak, but to turn to poor alternatives. I'm going to give you a very personal example of this, and I hope that some of you can see yourselves in my story. I'm conscious that there's a phone recording me. I usually only share this story on Shabbos. I trust it's going to stay private. When I was 13 years old, my parents got divorced. And it was a very, very difficult time in my life. My father decided that to get away from the instability of a divorce, he'll send me to Israel to learn in Israel, in a yeshiva. Now, this is many years ago, and now that I have my own sons that age, it was very difficult, let's just put it that way. I went to Israel, thousands of miles away from home. I knew that my world was turning upside down here in America. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't focus, I couldn't behave. And I was in a Hasidic school that woke up at 6 in the morning, went to the mikvah, had a seder, a whole day learning. By 10 o'clock, finally daven at Breit Aravit, and then 10:30, you're finally back. It's a full day, packed. And I remember one night, I was sitting, it was like 9:30, and I was homesick and hyper. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I really, looking back, I just needed care and connection. So I noticed that the bahur next to me, the guy next to me, was taking off his shoes under the table. Sometimes, you sit and you scratch your feet under the table, nobody sees. So, a mischievous kid, trying to find my way, trying to make my life a little bit exciting, distracting from what was really going on. I said, let me have fun. So he wasn't looking, I took his shoe, and I sneaked it onto my Rebbe's tender. I moved to the side, behind one of the bookcases, and like Miriam, Ladat Maya Oseloi, what is going to happen? I didn't have to wait too long. The Rebbe, he was at the bima in the center. He walks back to his seat, and he takes a look, and he sees the shoe. There's a shoe on his stender on top. So he looks around. Who did this? Now, when he said that, the boy sees the shoe. He's looking for the shoe under the table frantically. The Rebbe is turning red from rage. The kid is turning white as a ghost. And I'm just blue in the face over there on the side. And not me. There's always a snitch. There was a snitch. Before I knew it, the Rebbe was darting over, came straight to me, grabbed my hand, and pulled me out of the Beit HaKnesset, out of the Bet Midrash, and I kid you not, without thinking, he wound his hand back, and he hit me. It was a hard one. Not just physically, my face, my cheek was red, had fingerprints for 2 days. It was also tremendously shameful. I felt such deep shame. I was 13. My parents were going through a divorce, thousands of miles away from home. I just needed some care, some connection, some love. I didn't go about it the right way, obviously, but believe me, I was not a choli yadayim, I was not a choli raglayim. I was really a cholas ava ani. I just needed some love. And looking back, I can see what it really was. I ended up leaving the yeshiva. Didn't let me come back for 2 days, and then eventually I was like, okay. I went back, and my life took a different turn. A couple of months ago, I'm praying Shaharit. I was praying in a local shul. Usually down with my son's school, but this time I was praying in a local Chabad actually. And in LA, a lot of people, as I'm sure here too, a lot of people come to raise funds, collect money. And I'm finishing Shaharit, I'm putting away my tefillin, and what do I see? I pick up my head, and I see that Rabbi going for money. This is 30 years later. Now, I'm going to walk you through, I want to walk you through my thought process, okay? It's going to take just a couple of minutes, but it happened really fast. My first thought was, wow, midah keneged midah. the hand that slapped me is now stretched out, begging me for money. Hashem, you're great. My first thought, I quickly changed that. Then I said to myself, no, gold, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, you think God plucked this poor Jew out of Yerushalayim, sent him thousands of miles away from his family, just so that you can sit back, take pleasure in his pain? I don't think so. So why is he here? What's going on? And I realized that when I was 13, I tried to connect the wrong way. I tried to get that ahava in the wrong way. I put a shoe on his stender, trying to get attention. But 30 years later, I realized you want ahava, you want to feel God's presence in your life, you want to fill that void for real, the only way you could do it is by emulating Hashem with compassion and forgiveness. Shecholat ahava ani. 30 years ago, I was a choli yadayim, but not really. There was cholat ahava underneath. But 30 years later, I was a full-grown man, matured, grew. I realized this is what's happening. So he comes over, and he doesn't recognize me at all. You know, I also look different. I had payas and just different. And I said, Rabbi. Looks around me. I said, Rabbi. It took him like 3 to 4 seconds. And he looks at me and says, Yoel? Yoel. I said, Rabbi, that's me. Yeah, Shalom Aleichem. It's been so long. I said, Rabbi, what are you doing here? What's going on? He said, Yoel, I married off a son recently. Wife passed away. I'm trying to make another wedding for the same child. I don't have the funds. I said, Rabbi, how much do you need? He said, $1 million. I took out a check. I wrote him $1 million. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. I don't get it. He said, I need to raise $25,000. I said, Rabbi, put your hand back in your pocket. We're gonna do this together. And we went for the next 2 days, 48 hours. And we went, we raised the money for him. We sent him back on a plane. He was supposed to go to Chicago and New York, and I could see he had no idea what to do. He'd never done this before. He didn't even speak English. And that was it. We never spoke about it. I never brought it up. He never brought it up to me. I don't even know if he remembered. But the point is, in that moment, I was able to satisfy that hunger, that need, that void, not through choli yodayim, but to understand that it's cholat ahava ani. That if we want to fill that void with Hashem, it's cholat ahava ani. We have to emulate God. You know, people ask me, what's the greatest story you've heard? Because I got a lot of stories. You wouldn't believe it. I consider it one of the greatest. I've never shared it, but I still have to put this out. There's a woman in Israel, she called me. It's mind-boggling. She was married for 9 years. She was married for 9 years. She had 2 kids and then went through a bitter divorce. It was bad. And then her husband got sick. Her ex-husband got sick. And guess what? He needed a kidney, and she was a match. This woman gave her kidney to her ex-husband, who tortured her as they were going through a divorce to save his life. You want shecholat ahava ani? V'halachta b'drachav. Ozov ta'azov imo. That's incredible. It got to be the greatest story I've ever heard. And listen to what she said to me. I said, Adele, tell me, how did you do it? How? You know what she said to me? said, first of all, put my feelings aside. Don't you understand? I got 2 kids. He is their father. I should let their father die because I'm angry with them? Could you imagine? It actually reminded me of the pasuk in the Torah. It says, if you see a donkey of your enemy suffering, crouching under a heavy burden, it says, Azov ta'azov imo. Help him. You know what's interesting about those words? Azov ta'azov doesn't mean help. It actually means leave him. You know, azivat achet, al ken ya'azov ish et aviv et imo. It actually means leaving. Which means, if you read it literally, it means you hate him, go. Says the Targum, no. Azov ta'azov kama. You should leave. You know what you should leave? Leave your feelings behind. Imo, to be with him. To help him. We want to fill the void. We want to feel close. That's how we do it. I want to get back to this pasuk, by the way, because I'm not a genius, but I'm going to tell you something really interesting. It says, "V'ani berov hasdecha ovo veitecha." You know, realize, you know what the gematria, the numerical value of these words are? Oh, gosh, don't check. Lamed vav nerot lachanukah. The 36 candles for Chanukah, which we're approaching this week, is va'ani berov hasdecha v'vetecha, which means the Bet HaMikdash, berov chesed, we're able to come in and light the menorah. Tremendous chesed Hashem. You know why we were able to light the menorah berov chesed? Because we found a pach shemen. We found a tiny jug of oil that was pure, the only jug of oil that was still pure. The Sfarim say, that jug of oil that's pure, that wasn't contaminated, is found in the deepest depths inside each and every one of us. It cannot be defiled. It's inside of us. And comes Chanukah, we have to dig deep to find that Pach Shemen, that Cholat Ahava Ani, deep inside, and bring it out and light it up. To our families, to our communities, to the world. I don't know if you sing any other song besides Sephardi. Sephardi songs are gorgeous, by the way, but do you know there's one song I learned to play on a keyboard at 9 years old. This is the only song, by the way. I still know how to play on a keyboard. It's the song Ana, 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 Avada de Kodesh. Everybody knows that song? Yeah? Ana, 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 Echo, Ana, 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 Aveda de Kodesh Abeli, Ana, 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 Aveda de Kodesh. You know I have a beautiful voice too, right? So, do you? As you're singing this, by the way, I used to play it. I never paid attention to the words, but then I noticed something interesting. You know, whoever composed this song, I got to talk to that guy, because if you try singing this in English, yet translate the words. Here's how it would sound. I, I'm the servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, me, myself, and I'm the servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It always bothered me, because shouldn't it be Ana, Aveda, Aveda? Aren't we going to be focusing that you're a servant, or are you going to be focusing on yourself? You're going to distribute the words differently, right? Reminds me of when I was learning in Kollel with Yonatan Razel. Yonatan Razel composed the famous Vihisha Amda, right? V'akadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu. He once told me, he said, ever since he was a kid, he would sit around his parents' table, and they would sing the traditional Vihisha Amda. And I don't know, there are a few, but the one that he would sing, I would sing also as a kid. It goes like this. והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, שלא יבנו דבר. Ever know this one? No? Okay, here's how it goes. שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, אלא שבכל דור ודור, אלא שבכל עומדים עלינו לכלותנו. This is how it goes. If I translated this in English, here's how it would sound. Not only one nation tried to kill us, not only one nation tried to kill us, 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 kill us. Rather, in every generation, everybody's trying to kill us, kill us, kill us, kill us. And then I called this Baruch Hu Matzi. And his head is like bothering him so much. Like, really? Like, that's the focus of the song? Not to bash that song. There are probably deep secrets in why it's sung that way, but it bothered him. And he said, when I grow up, I'm going to emphasize different words. And he said, V'akadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu. And then when you get to the Ella, he goes up so high, nobody can even reach it. Nobody can reach it, it's fine. That's why he did it that way. You know, it's like, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the focus is Hashem saved us. So back to Ana. Why are we emphasizing and re-emphasizing, stressing it over and over, Ana, Avodah Kodesh Baruch Hu? And I think the answer is very simple. Because when we ask ourselves, who are we? Right? If I ask you, who are you? I think you'll have to go through a couple of answers before you get to the core of who you are. Ana, who are you? Oh, buddy, no, it's not who I am. Ana, who are you really underneath all the choli yadayim, the choli raglayim? You know Ana? Yeah, that's me, the Pachshemen inside. Avodah Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's me. You gotta dig to get to that Pachshem and to get to that identity inside of you, to know who you are. It's not easy, but that's the avodah of Chanukah. That's how you light up the darkness with clarity, that there's a part of me that's absolutely pure. I want to end with the following story. Beautiful, beautiful story I heard from my friend Eli Skase. Eli Skase, his job in the IDF, he's a commander in the IDF, and his job is to extract dead bodies from Gaza, Lebanon, war zones, and bring them to Kiburat Yisrael. That's his job. Nobody wants that job. It's tough. And he does it as heartbroken as he is every time. And he told me, I cannot get used to it. I'm not immune to it. It hurts every time. He said a couple of days after October 7th, Simchat Torah, he was at a base in Nachal Oz, and there were 7 soldiers on that base, and they were all missing. They were able to identify 5, they were still missing 2. And he and his unit, they went there and literally told me it was burnt to a crisp. Everything was burnt. And they started crawling underneath the rubble to try to find if they can, a body, or they were yelling their names. And he said, they had their helmet lights shining to different spots, and all of a sudden, he feels a metal file cabinet in the rubble. And he can feel that there's an opening. Apparently, one of the terrorists tried to pry it open. And he could fit his hand through it. So he sticks his hand inside the file cabinet and he feels around, taps around, and there's a velvet bag. He pulls it out and he sees it's a bag with tefillin, somebody's tefillin. He opens it up, there's a number. Now, Eli said to me, there is no way this soldier is alive. I mean, he was at the base, probably had his tefillin there. None of the soldiers were anywhere to be found. They identified 5 bodies, but 2 were still missing. It's like, there's no way. But it had a name, Tzuf. It had a number. He said, I got to call. So he calls the number, and believe it or not, it rings twice, and there's a voice on the other end of the phone. Shalom. So Eli's taken aback. He's like, Shalom, אתה צוף? He said, כן. אתה חי? He said, כן. He said, מצאתי את התפילין שלך. אין מצב. The guy says, impossible. הלו? מצאתי את התפילין שלך. I found your tefillin. Tzuf says, תשמע, אין מצב. אי אפשר. אמרו לי שהכל נשרף. הכל נשרף, אי אפשר. So Eli says, אחי, תשמע, הרבה נשרף, אבל לא הכל נשרף. A lot was burnt, but not everything was burnt. So the silence at the other end, he's processing it. He says, you're sure? He says, yeah. אבל אמרו לי הכל נשרף, אמרו לי הכל נשרף. He says, אחי, הרבה נשרף, אבל לא הכל נשרף. Eli says, where are you right now? He says, I'm in Tel Aviv. He says, I'll meet you there. Give me your address. He grabs the tefillin, and he goes to Tel Aviv, and they meet up, and he hands it to Tzuf, and Tzuf is looking at the tefillin, can't even believe it. And Eli told me, Tzuf gave him the longest hug. And then he said to Eli, he said like this, I have to tell you, do you know why my tefillin wasn't that base? And I'm here. He said, because I was supposed to be on that base, Simchas Torah. There was another chayal that had off the next week, and he wanted to switch with me. He was supposed to be off Simchas Torah, I was supposed to be off next week. He says, can we switch? Have a family occasion. And I ended up switching, but I left my tefillin knowing that I'll come back right after Shabbat. And Simchas Torah morning, I looked at the news, I saw the videos. I didn't want to be here anymore. I knew they were all gone. I don't want to be here anymore. So they were planning to go into Gaza the next week to fight. And he said, Tzuf decided that when I go into Gaza the next week, I'm going to fight to death. I don't want to come back. And if I'm going down fighting. I'm done. Hakol nisraf. I'm hopeless. I don't want to continue like this. But then, you called me. And you said, Achi, Ben Israf, a lot was burned that day. Aval lo hakol nisraf. Not everything was burnt. Matzati et hatfilin shilcha. I found your tefillin. And in that moment, there was a flicker of hope. Really? Lo hakol nisraf? Lo hakol nisraf. Harbe nisraf, aval lo hakol nisraf. You saved my life. I'm going to fight, but I'm coming home and I'm starting over. Morai v'Rabotai, if that's not the message of Chanukah, Harbe nisraf, even today, Harbe nisraf, aval lo hakol nisraf. Lo hakol nisraf with our people, lo hakol nisraf individually within ourselves. Doesn't matter what we've been through. It doesn't matter. All the choli rosh, wherever our heads have been, the choli adayim, the choli raglayim. But there's that Bachshem and the Cholat Ava Ani, that purity. Harbe nisraf, אבל לא הכל nisraf. I want to wish each and every one of us the strength to find that Bachshem inside of us. And to make sure that as we approach Chanukah, V'ani berov chastecha uvovetecha, the 36 candles of Chanukah in this show hinted to in your Oren Kodesh, which is your mission, to make sure to light that Bachshem and the menorah so you can light up yourselves, your families, your communities, and the entire world, and wish you zocha to finally light the menorah. B'binyan Bet HaMikdash, b'biat Mashiach, b'meira b'yameinu, amen ve'amen. Toda Rabba. Thank you for inviting me.